You go to prison, they shackle your dreams, an echo in the dark, or so it seems. Fighting your case with nothing but truth, clenching your fists as you steady your proof. And then they hit you with words like stones. You show no remorse, they carve in your bones. You won't take responsibility, you're not ready. We paint with excuses, keep the truth unsteady. How you gonna take blame for a storm you didn't bring? Like blaming the man who's just caught in the swing. The system don't care about the path you tread, only about boxes and a story well read. A trapdoor's waiting on both sides of this game. Confess to a crime, dance in someone's shame. They're looking for confessions, not justice, not grace. Just a clean little narrative that fits in this space. 20 years in, then 25 more, still saying, I didn't do this, don't they just ignore? Instead of respect, they punish your fight, turning truth into chains, darkness swallowing light. How you gonna take blame for a storm you didn't bring? Like blaming the man who's just caught in the swing. The system don't care about the path you tread, only about boxes and a story well read. This ain't rehabilitation, it's a game they play, trading innocent souls for compliance each day. And here's the truth bared raw like a wound, real remorse for the guilty. That's the tune they croon. But innocent hearts beating inside those cells need their stories to shift away from these hells. Change the definitions, let compassion in, because real justice starts where the truth can begin. Your innocence should never serve as your chain. We hold on to hope, knowing change is our game.
Hey yo. Hey yo. They said Janet came home normal. I said stop the cap, 'cause the neighbor saw the whole scene. Her behavior wasn't regular. That timeline, nothing about it clean. People don't pull in, sit 5 minutes, pull back out, park again. Stand outside like they fighting thoughts deep within, unless something heavy got under their skin. Oh, Commonwealth wanna pretend she was calm. Man, miss me with that. Michelle watched her whole routine glitch, like a mind buffering, trying to process a fact. She only brought in 2 bags, but the trunk was full. If everything normal, why she moving like she's stuck in a lull? Why leave the rest in the car? Why freeze up mid-task? Why step back out and smoke like she needed time to unmask? That ain't I just got home. There's something weighing on me, as my spirit ain't settled, that somebody or something been playing on me. She smoked the whole cigarette, not a drag, not a taste, the whole thing like she trying to calm a storm she ain't ready to face. But y'all wanna force Eddie into danger mode? Nah, the vibe ain't matching. She wasn't rushing inside, she wasn't scared of who y'all claim was attacking. She was outside at least 10 minutes, visibly upset, acting strange, moving different. And the prosecution tried to rearrange, like none of that mattered. But this opens the door to other interactions, other stressors, other people, other explanations. And that's exactly why they ignored it. Cause once you admit she was upset, you gotta admit the story ain't set. And the whole prosecution narrative start looking like a bad URL vet. All performance, no threat. I said the truth hit harder than any bar I could craft. And this timeline right here, yeah, it's the part where the Commonwealth get laughed off the map.
Alrighty then, what's going on, everybody? How are we doing? What is happening? Shout out to everybody out there. What up, JoJo, man? How we doing? How we doing out there in Boston? You know? What's going on, everybody, man? Welcome, welcome, welcome. You know, I'm getting messages from people that are like, hey, can you tag me when you go live? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Let's see, my schedule going live. I got to go live early because, I work late night. So I have to go live in the morning so I can get some couple hours sleep. You know, I tell people that I could prove Eddie OBrien is innocent, and I could do it with the house's money. And what I mean is I could do it with the house's own paperwork. You know, you look at the Commonwealth's own friggin' evidence, right? I mean, their lab reports, their experts, their paperwork, not conspiracy, not speculation. And look, my book came in. Oh, let me put the camera on. I'll show you real quick. There was some case law in his book that I really wanted. So you know what my dumbass did is I went and ordered the damn book. And then I find it that I could have bought it used. Don't I feel dumb? Let me see. I'll show you. I'll show you the book. Let me take this down first. Let's see. Let's see the book. Just got it. It just came in. You know, I got some case law inside here that I wanted. So heavy ass book, though, I'll tell you that much. Heavy ass book. But we're gonna do another deep dive on the Eddie OBrien case, same file. You know, go over some stuff that the jury never saw. Yeah, just give me a second. I'll catch you on the other side.
o'clock news. A 15-year-old boy they could easily use. They threw his clean clothes in a bloodstained car and locked up a peacemaker behind iron bars. They call him a predator to hide their own lies, but we see the truth when we look in his eyes. A loyal young soul, so gentle and polite. We're standing together to finish this fight. Unchain the gentle giant, let a good soul breathe. Free Eddie the Teddy, it's time he's released. Break down the courtroom walls, let the truth ring clear. Bring our selfless boy home in the 30-year tear. They hid all the palm prints, the DNA strands, put a lifetime of blame on a child's scarred hands. But the science is speaking, the silence is broke. We're tearing the fabric of the web that they spoke. He's grateful and compassionate, steady and true. An innocent man wearing prison cell blue. The system can bend, but it's breaking today. We won't stop shouting till he walks away. Unchain the gentle giant, let a good soul breathe. Free Eddie the Teddy, it's time he's released. Break down the courtroom walls, let the truth ring clear. Bring our selfless boy home in the 30-year tear. Tired of their stories, tired of the pain. We rise up together, we'll dance in the rain. He's our gentle giant, our shining star. We'll fight till the end, we'll carry him
I'm muted. Or to Mikey, you're muted. Eddie OBrien giving MGH Orthopedics a plug over there in Peabody. Duh. You know, but yeah, prayers to Mama O'Brien. Hope she does better. You know, a lot of us know she took a nasty fall a day before their trip to the Cape, but nothing was going to keep them ladies down, man. You know, nothing was going to keep them from going that trip to the Cape. You know, shout out to Margot Nash, a lot of people know her book will be out July 28th, I believe. And, stay tuned because she'll, we'll have the date soon for the book signing. So, check that out very, very soon. But, I usually start off a little slow. Just switch to Sanka. Remember that in Ferris Bueller's Day Off? I just switched to Sanka. But yeah, but when you look at the Eddie OBrien case, and I always want, and I love when people, try to tell me that, he's guilty, blah, 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 and I ask, why is he guilty? And they really can't give me any solid reason, or they'll tell me what that dolphin idiot says. Oh, because a jury convicted him. No, oh, okay. How about opening up the file, stupid? Read. Do some reading. You remember reading's fundamental. But when you read what the Commonwealth, everything that they contradict, I mean, you think the evidence was trying to jump out the folder. But we go all the way back to October 1st, back in 1997. A 15-year-old kid convicted of a red room. The science does not put him at. And we went over this. A lot of the diehards know, like, not maybe, right? Not possibly. We talk about Selmach lavatories. That's the Commonwealth's chosen lab at the time, right? They officially excluded Eddie OBrien from the DNA found. And I keep repeating that, like it's you can't even say it's like beating a dead horse. Because it's like my man's still locked up in a bubble. Been there since he was 15 years old. Counted 1, 5. And there was no DNA found on Janet. That's almost impossible. I mean, that's not my theory. That didn't come from the chat. We didn't get that shit from a TikTok detective or a YouTube investigator. Because, we got a lot of YouTube investigators around now. Oh, big shout out to Aunt Jerry coming in with the $9.99. Appreciate that. Get some gas in the hoopty. I told you all my car blew a head gasket. So a friend of mine had a minivan. So we go to register the minivan. And they said, hey, you can get antique plates on this shit. And so that's what we did. we got a van with antique plates. Imagine this. A 2004 now is considered antique. Is that crazy? But even the 2000, like a 2000, that's crazy. It's just hard to imagine, think about that a 2004 vehicle is now considered antique. I mean, it's just crazy. But let's continue talking about, this shit should have shut this whole case down like a 3-alarm fire alarm. Selmach Laboratories, they test the DNA, and Selmach excluded Eddie OBrien. Do I got to put that in subtitles or something? I always like something that Jay-Z said. Do you listen to music or do you just let it skim by? And that's the same thing like with the evidence. Do you listen to the evidence or do you just let that shit fall right by you? Because it wasn't inconclusive, right? Not partial, not halfway, right? No. It wasn't like, we really can't rule out Eddie. No, they said excluded. Like, brother, you're excluded. Get out of here. That's what it should have been. Meaning, what does that mean? The DNA on the victim belongs to who? Someone else. Now, explain to me how you sell a story, right? About a close contact stabbing, a vicious beating. You know what I mean? It should have been a bloodbath, right? And the person you say did it isn't in the DNA. I mean, that's like blaming a tornado for the mess and then realizing the windows were never open. You know what I mean? Instead of addressing that, right? What's the Commonwealth do? They didn't do shit. They tucked their little tail between their little legs. They hid that shit like a bad report card and hoped nobody would read it. I had a report card like that. I remember I had F's and E's. Yep. F's and E's. So I had this bright idea. I said, I'm going to take all the F's and I'm going to make them A's. And I'm going to take all the E's and I'm going to make them B's. And I'm going to bring that home and my mom's going to be proud of me. She's going to be like, wow. Because I never liked school, ever. Even in the young grades, right? So I bring that home. Mom was proud, you know what I mean? But I forgot that you got to return the report cards to school. And I was like, I got busted. I was like, damn. I got busted. Mom was proud of me for about an hour. I said, hey, mommy, you want me to get you something? Yeah, you can go get me that damn belt. I said, oh, shit. But when you go through this case file, I mean, when you actually read it, not skim it, you start seeing a pattern here, you know? And you start seeing a pattern that the jury never saw. Big shout out to 2 Cents, of course, free Eddie OBrien and lock up the little evil man, Tom Riley. Thank you. I really appreciate that. You know, but according to the Commonwealth's own documents, evidence was missing or it was just never presented. Witness statements were just totally incomplete or they were just ignored altogether. And you had other suspects that were never fully investigated. You know, you had people that should have not been ruled out. They didn't, never mind rule them out. I appreciate you as well, 2 Cents, and everyone else. You know, thank you. Never mind be ruled out. You know, not even talk to him. Shit, the judge didn't even, the judge was like, who's this Adi guy? Basically nobody at all. you know, but never mind ruled out. Shit, witness statements were just straight incomplete, ignored. Paul Sr., we don't have to rehash what a violent POS that guy is. And I'll say it over and over. Anyone that puts their hands on a woman is no type of man at all. And then your son follows in your footsteps. You know, because that's what a good man does, right? You teach him to be dominant. I just can't respect that. And not only that, bro, you had Paul Jr. so effed up. That dude's running around with dresses on. Like, how crazy is that? How Fruit Loop wacky you gotta be running around with your mother or sister's dress on, bro? Seriously. You got issues, bro. You have issues. Is stop right now and go over there and check out GoSendGo.com/GNJZA. You know, go over there, check that out. Matter of fact, I will. Let me get to the other computer here. Let me X that out. Easy to block, Captain. Get rid of him. Madstalk. Oh, Madstalk is going live. Boy, I'll tell you what, Madstalk, he don't like that JFK guy. No, 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 no. You don't like him. Can't understand why. Hey, what happened to Robert's message? What's going on here? I did not do that. Oh, that's why I ain't even on the right one over here. Whoa. We have trouble getting over that 750 subs. So come on, man. If you're not listening or if you're not subscribed, you know, I appreciate it. You know, just hit the subscribe button. It's free. It don't cost you anything. Unless you a hater. It costs you no paper unless you a hater. There we go. The Give Send Go is now pinned in the chat. Go over there and you know, give to Eddie's fundraiser that he's having for the Rule 30. But the unknown male DNA, that was never retested. Key details were downplayed, right? I mean, it wasn't a full picture. It wasn't even a fair fight. You know, it was a conviction that was built on, you know, Bob George being afraid. It was built on the jury being afraid, politics, you know, and you don't get justice by speed running a friggin' homicide investigation. I mean, let's keep it real. And let's talk about what nobody talks about, the truth serum test. They pretend never happened. And the court is who wanted the truth serum test. Eddie had no problem with it. He volunteered for it. He said, absolutely, because he had nothing to hide. Now, here is something that the Commonwealth didn't exactly go around yelling, right? Eddie took a truth serum test. Oh, absolutely. If Eddie failed that test, you would have heard about it. Oh, you would have. It would have been in every newspaper. But now, let's be grown here because Eddie took the truth serum test and passed it. Exactly, passed it, right? So, the truth serum, we know it's not admissible. They say it's not reliable science, and nobody's saying it proves innocent. But what it does prove, and I think this should at least been allowed an opening statement, even though opening statements is not evidence. This is why it should have been allowed. Eddie wasn't hiding. Eddie didn't dodge. Eddie didn't dodge the truth serum. He was like, yep, I'll do it. He was ready. I'll do it. He wasn't playing games. He knew. He submitted to every test that the Commonwealth threw at him. Like Mo Vaughn out there just clubbing them, bang, knocking them out the park. Even the ones the lawyer would recommend, even the ones no lawyer would ever friggin' recommend. And what happened? What happened to your truth serum test? That shit collapsed. Eddie kicked the shit out of it. Your lie detector test. He knocked that in the river too. He beat him. But we can't talk about that. And of course, George got no money left, right? So where's the expert to challenge the shit when they're throwing it out? I mean, their own evidence was over here collapsing. Like a damn folding chair at a cookout. So you got to stay 3 decades, 30 years in prison for a story that doesn't match the science. So Eddie OBrien has spent over 30 years in prison for a crime the biological evidence does not tie him to. Is that what we are saying? I wrote that down last night, the biological evidence. I love that one. You know, a crime where the unknown male DNA, right, was never retested. Is that what you're saying? A crime where the jury never heard the full truth, right? Right, Mr. Riley? Well, what does his goddaughter think about all this? I mean, you must be able to see that this is a messed up conviction, right? You should make it right. Just think, you'll look compassionate. The prison will look like, it's serious about rehabilitation. They could say, look at Eddie, man. We rehabilitated him because he was such a good convict. You know what I mean? Only 7 write-ups in like 31 years. That's insane. Like I just can't. I can't believe that, man. I'm like wow. Because I had a lot more than 7. I'll tell you that. Hot radios, hot TVs, hot pots. You know what I mean? Watches. You know what I mean? Dirty errands. B status. Escape. But now with a Route 30 motion coming, right? So now the Commonwealth is going to have to answer for the parts of this case that they left out. I mean, and listen, people, right? Eddie O'Brien has spent 3 decades in prison for a crime, right? The science says he didn't commit, right? A crime. The evidence points away from Eddie O'Brien. The DNA excludes Eddie O'Brien. Like, this is really a case, like, people. This is the case. Hey, yeah, all is well, man. Welcome back. This is a case where we really have an innocent man locked up. There really is an innocent person locked up. I mean, a truth serum test, he beats it. You know, like, the evidence points away from Eddie. The jury never got what all the evidence. And all I'm saying is, like, listen to the evidence, right? Go back and watch a couple of my streams, because I think I broke it down. I think I broke it down well. Even Eddie's family said I did a very good job explaining the DNA test, explaining all of that. So if you're in doubt, please go back and watch some of the breakdowns and decide for yourself. Go into it with a clear mind, because once you see what's in the case files, go to, the truth about Eddie O'Brien.com, because once you see what's the state's own evidence, you'll understand why this Rule 30 hearing isn't just overdue. I mean, it's justice finally catching up. I mean, do we want to see an innocent man do any more time than he has to? Do we want to see that? Go back and watch Eddie O'Brien's parole hearing, where they treated it like a trial. Hey, welcome, Matt. Of course, Your Honor. And Sherry, welcome. But because once you see, what I've seen in that case file, once you break down, a big shout out to shooting informants, not drugs. Free Eddie O'Brien, absolutely. Once you see that DNA, Eddie's DNA is excluded. What else is there to say? And then you got the friggin' truth serum. And then decide for yourself. But you can't be over here, free Eddie, and then telling that scumbag Adi Ortiz, oh, your friggin' new teeth look nice, or oh, your smile looks good, or hey, Adi, how you doing? You know what I mean? Because here's a guy that wishes the worst of Eddie O'Brien, said he should rot in prison. And you over here want to, like, shine your cupcakes with the friggin' guy. But once you see what's in these files, you'll understand why this Rule 30 hearing, isn't just overdue. It's just finally catching up. I mean, the truth serum. Eddie was given, it's a sodium amytal, right? And it's commonly called a truth serum, right? It's not magic potion. It don't force some confessions, but it does lower your senses and make it harder for someone to maintain a lie, right? They used to use it a lot in the 80s and the 90s when they believed that maybe somebody was so traumatized, or they were confused, or they wasn't able to tell the truth, and if they just couldn't articulate it clearly. And I think they even used it back, like, during wartime and stuff. But Eddie was so fast to volunteer to take the test. And his parents said it right here on the show a couple of weeks ago that they were scared to death, not because they thought it would have bad results. They was petrified because their 15-year-old boy is going to be all jacked up on drugs. That's why they were nervous. But the investigators was pushing a narrative that Eddie was lying. The court wanted the Amatol test, and Eddie was like, "Yeah, no problem." But let me tell you, if this went the other way, if Eddie failed the Amatol test, would have shitty ass O'Reilly, do you think he would have been trying to keep that out of the trial, or would he be able to sneak that shit in? Yeah, get them likes up, man. Don't be disrespectful. But what did Eddie say? Nah, give me that test. What is that? That gotta tell you some shit, right? The more context on the interrogation, man. Listen, this whole breakdown, man. This is the part I think that the Commonwealth never highlights. But during the sodium amytal test, Eddie didn't confess. He didn't implicate himself. He didn't describe harming Janet. He didn't even give any incriminating details because there were no incriminating details to give. He repeated the same story he gave while he was conscious. The same story. The test didn't produce deception, like there's rumors out there. Nothing Eddie said under the drugs matched what the prosecution was saying. Nothing. And I bet some of the core questions that they were asking. Oh man. It just makes your brain activity, just slows your brain activity down. It don't guarantee that you're telling the truth. I mean, and you know what? The amateur test can also create like false memories and make people vulnerable to leading questions. So it could go the other way. I mean, how it works is that I guess the barbiturates, like the sodium amytal, um, I guess it hits your GABA A receptors, right? Which I guess they suppress higher brain functions, like judgment, planning, stuff like that, complex reasoning, and This is why when people are under the drug, they speak more freely. You know, they lose their mental filter. You know, they can't maintain a lie. You know, you could kind of lead them along. It reduces the anxiety, you know, so, you know, it definitely gets the person talking. I mean, Eddie, it's even in the public record. He volunteered for the test. He wasn't forced. He was down with it. I mean, Eddie did not confess. This is what matters. People are like, oh, what did he say? What did he say? He didn't confess. He didn't contradict himself, right? He didn't describe harming Janet like he most definitely would have went into something like that. He repeated the same story that he's been telling us all along. And a lot of people are like, oh, how come we don't hear about these tests being done? Because a lot of courts has ruled, you know, the statements inadmissible, because sodium amytal can create false memories as well. So even though Eddie did pass the test, the results couldn't be used at trial. But I just don't understand why in opening statement the jury couldn't use them. They couldn't be used at trial. The jury never heard that Eddie even volunteered for the test. They never heard that Eddie stayed consistent. They never heard that he never slipped. He never confessed, because they didn't want the jury to hear that. This is the same part of evidence the jury never saw, which is this is also going to be central to the Rule 30. I mean, he volunteered to take it, you know, he never confessed. This is what you have to remember. And the jury never heard any of it. You know, and usually under the sodium test, they were saying that sometimes you add details that they can't keep straight. Some people have been known to change timelines, inconsistencies, emotional cracks, but Eddie didn't do any of that. So are you telling me that Eddie's this cool, calm cucumber? And this is why I think the test matters, because it proves innocence. But because he shows his history held up, even when his brain was chemically like in la la land, he's all relaxed and unable to maintain a lie. I'll be right back.
Not promote or promotion any illegal activities. All content provided by this channel is meant only for educational purpose only.
Courtroom lights, truth's gonna bend. Half an inch standing tall, trying to defend. Said it looked bad on paper, but it's all deeper. Politics lurking, call it a grim reaper. Eddie was just a kid, caught in the fray, but the power players had a game to play. From day one, they wanted him to fall. A kid in the spotlight, crushed by it
Justice wasn't blind, it was a political bet. Dr. Barnum was chosen, thought he would be right, a face of fairness in that long, dark night. But the DA smiled wide, played both sides slick. Heffernan thought neutral, but maybe that's the trick. Eddie's fate sealed with a stroke of a pen. My ruling was sound, but the world turned again. They needed him guilty to fit their plan, change the laws mid-game. Oh, what a scam! Heffernan knew the truth. No, it ain't fair. Politics behind the scenes, no one would care. Guilty or innocent, the verdict was set. Justice wasn't blind, it was a political bet. Juvenile court, he should have stayed there. 20 years, not a slap, but no one would care. System in panic cause he stood his ground, but the wheels of justice just turned him around. They wanted Eddie down, they wanted him lost. With the stakes so high, he paid the cost. Heffernan's truth rang clear in the dark, tried to bring light but it missed the mark. Eddie, a kid caught in a game, lost in the shuffle, society's shame. So here's a lesson carved deep as stone: justice shouldn't wear a political tone. Heffernan stood firm, knew it wasn't just in a world focused on power. Who can you trust? Heffernan knew the truth. No, it ain't fair. Politics behind the scenes, no one would care. Guilty or innocent, the verdict was set. Justice wasn't blind, it was a political bet. So let's remember as the story unfolds, the tales of the innocent, the truth yet told. Heffernan knew the truth, and it cuts like a knife in the courtroom of power. What's the cost of a life? On the evening show. They needed a monster for the 5 o'clock news, a 15-year-old boy they could easily use. They threw his clean clothes in a bloodstained car and locked up a peacemaker behind iron bars. They call him a predator to hide their own lies, but we see the truth when we look in his eyes. A loyal young soul, so gentle and polite. We're standing together to finish this fight. Unchain the gentle giant, let a good soul breathe. Free Eddie the Teddy, it's time he's released. Break down the courtroom walls, let the truth ring clear. Bring our selfless boy home in the 30-year tear. They hit all the palm
fingerprints, the DNA strands, put a lifetime of blame on a child's scarred hands. But the science is speaking, the silence is broke. We're tearing the fabric of the web that they spoke. He's grateful and compassionate, steady and true, an innocent man wearing prison cell blue. The system can bend, but it's breaking today. We won't stop shouting till he walks away. Unchain the gentle giant, let it get soul, breathe. Free Eddie the Teddy, it's time he's released. Break down the courtroom walls, let the truth ring clear. Bring our selfless boy home, and the 30 years here. Tired of their stories, tired of the pain. We rise up together, we'll dance in the rain. He's our gentle giant, our shining star. We'll fight till the end, we'll carry him far. Unchain the gentle giant, let a good soul breathe. Free Eddie the Teddy, it's time he's released. Break down the courtroom walls, let the truth ring clear. Bring our selfless boy home in the third. In the corridors of silence, where shadows tend to dwell, a boy named Eddie lay in wait, for he had stories yet to tell. 15 years, a child adrift, the system cold and stark. Di Riley held a gavel, a hammer, a spark. You're not a kid, he said, not under my command. A hardened heart won't save him, let the law take its stand. But in this world of darkness, where hope had started to fade, Eddie stood defiant through decisions oft mislaid. Innocence caught in the crossfire, in a cage where love should be, a puppet on the strings of fate, lost in what you'd see. Eddie, oh Eddie, maybe fate's cruel hand helped carve a better path for souls who can't withstand. A voice among the broken, a light to guide the way, from a boy in chains to a whisper of a brighter day. In those iron bars, a heart began to bloom. From a restless spirit rose the song of change midst gloom. Policies were shifted, the tide began to bend. A beacon for the lost, Eddie learned how to mend. Drawing lines of kindness in a world where hearts turn cold, with stories woven gently, Eddie's courage to unfold. Eddie, oh Eddie, a tale of light and dark, turning pain into purpose, igniting every spark. A voice among the broken, the change in every soul. Fate may have broken you, but you made the
sent you on a mission, a hero in disguise. Amidst the chains of silence, you answer every task. Through the echo of your footsteps, light shall surely rise.
All right, we back, man. Appreciate that that little break. Hope you enjoyed the music. So where were we? Selmark. What was Selmark hired to do? Selmark was one of the top private DNA labs back in the 90s. All right, son.
I'll see you later.
I love you.
See you tomorrow. Yeah, everything's fine. I just want to stop by and say hi.
All right, just making sure, because you don't come by.
Check on my kid. Don't you start with that bullshit. Don't you start with that bullshit.
You don't come by unless you're beeping. Sorry about that. My son just stopped by. So we're talking about Selmark. I think I even have the Selmark paper up here. So let me put this up on the screen. Make sure everything else is down. Let's add that to the stage. All right, and I gotta get this banner out of here. Yeah, this is the one, Selmark, right? So they do biological material from the crime scene, DNA from under Janet's Downing's fingernails. They tested that. DNA from the metal piece that was found at the scene. And what's the date on this? July 25th of 97. So that would be the 7th month, and Eddie got convicted in the 10th month. But how come they didn't have this report until after the trial? How come this report saying Eddie was excluded from DNA, but it wasn't, they didn't have it until after the trial was over? So they tested DNA under Janet's fingernails, right? DNA from the metal piece found at the scene, blood samples, other reference samples from Eddie, right? And their job was simple, right? Determine whether Eddie O'Brien's DNA was present on key evidence. And they couldn't even do that. Get this banner down. They couldn't even do that. So it says September 6th of 96, items of evidence were received for analysis from above referenced case. We're going to do a PCR test on them. So, and other biological materials collected from the crime scene as well. The DNA belonged to another male, not Eddie. The killer left DNA. Eddie's didn't match it. So there was DNA left on Janet, but it wasn't Eddie's DNA. And you people will swear to God Eddie's guilty. Oh, he's your rock. He's your rock. That's what Adi says. He's your rock. This case should have a lot of people curious, But really, if you start looking at the evidence, and I tell everyone, go to thetruthabouteddieobrien.com, go over the evidence for yourself. Go over what I've been breaking down for the last couple of weeks, of months, really. It wasn't his DNA. Tom O'Reilly and Bob George should share a cell together. And this isn't speculation. The killer left DNA. Eddie's didn't match it. This is the Commonwealth's own forensic evidence, mind you. And why this all matters in a case like this, because Janet Downing suffered 98 stab wounds and caught a beating from one side of the house to the other in a violent, close contact, right? Like forensic science shows, the attacker almost always leaves DNA. Always leaves DNA. The victim almost always scratches or fights back. And Janet did that. Janet had, grime under her fingernails, skin under her fingernails, DNA under the fingernails. And it was from her fighting back. So when Selmark found the male DNA under her nails, right, that should have been the biggest clue in the case. But Riley didn't like that information, and he tells Selma, yo, keep that shit to yourself, and I'll let you know what to do later. But the jury never heard a lot of this shit. This is the part that blows people's mind, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. No, only what the judge thinks is allowed in. The jury was never clearly told that Selmark found male DNA, right? That male DNA was not Eddie O'Brien's, right? That the DNA was never matched to anybody else because they didn't bother testing. We'll call these the Boston House defendants. They didn't bother testing the Boston Street House defendants. The Commonwealth never retested the unknown male DNA. And that right there, my friends, the prosecution built a case ignoring their own forensic results. They used this company and they ignored them. But what did they focus on? Panic, politics, emotions, a rushed narrative. A rushed narrative. I mean, they didn't focus on science. They didn't focus on science. I mean, there was a lot of evidence the jury never had a chance to hear. Now, Selmark results proved that there was another male was physically involved in the struggle. But because they never tested Paul Jr., they never tested Adi Ortiz, they never tested Paul Sr., they have all the blood, but they wouldn't allow Eddie's attorney to test it for himself. They said there was no reason to do that. What do you mean the male was not Eddie's? The male has never been identified. This is that definition of that third-party culprit evidence that was never pursued. And why is this huge for a Rule 30 motion? I mean, in a Rule 30 motion, the courts are going to look at what? New evidence. They're going to look at, withholding evidence, scientific contradictions, any constitutional violations. I mean, the Selmark exclusion of Eddie's is objective. It's unbiased, exculpatory. I mean, you pick it, case altering. I mean, it definitely undermines the prosecution's theory that Eddie acted alone or acted at all. Because Selmark, that's the Commonwealth's own DNA lab. They found male DNA at the crime scene. The DNA was not Eddie O'Brien's. The jury never heard of that shit. The prosecution never even had to explain it. Make that make sense. And the state never even retested it. Break that down. But the real source here, people, right? The DNA has never been identified. Absolutely. The Downing family has a history of violence. Paul Jr. watched his father do it with precision for years, beating their mother across that house. And then Paul Jr. ended up, being an abuser just like Daddy. But this is why a lot of these Selmark reports, right, are the most important piece of evidence in some of these cases. The most important piece of evidence. So now let's talk about what the jury didn't hear. Things that we went over today, right? They didn't hear the Selmark DNA exclusion. They didn't hear Eddie was excluded. If they did, you think that would have changed the jury's mind? They found male DNA under Janet's fingernails and on other items in the house that was not Eddie. The DNA did not match Eddie O'Brien. And the jury never heard any explanation of that. So would have this changed the jury's mind? Again, the jury never heard an explanation. That the killer left DNA. The jury never heard that. The jury never heard that the DNA belonged to another male. The jury never heard that Eddie was scientifically excluded. The jury never heard that. I mean, this is exculpatory evidence, people, right? This is the shit that these Rule 30 cases is built on. I mean, the unknown male DNA was never retested. Why? Why was the male DNA that was found under Janet Downing's fingernails never retested? Was it ever compared to CODIS? Did they match it to any other suspects? Oh, no, because you didn't have any, right? Did you match it to the family, the blood you already taken? See, so the jury never heard that the real perpetrator's DNA was sitting right in evidence. Oh, Margot's book, the next 10 chapters, is going to be great. Now, what else? The truth serum test. Exactly. Eddie volunteered for this test. Yes, the court ordered it, but Eddie said, absolutely, I'll take it. And when he was sedated, did Eddie confess? No. Did he contradict himself? No. He repeated the same story. I ran over to Janet. Oh my God, are you okay? I get yoked up from behind. There was no deception. None. The jury never heard that Eddie's story even held up even when his brain was chemically relaxed. His story never went anywhere. He had the same consistent story. So who in the chat thinks Eddie is guilty? How about multiple witnesses? Multiple witnesses heard another male voice. Several neighbors ended up reporting hearing two male voices, whether inside the house, right outside the house, hearing a man say, "What are you still doing here?" Who was that? And then they see a man running from the scene. Somebody said another guy jumped the fence, and they tried to make it out to be Eddie, but the witness never said that. So Eddie's a ninja now too, scaling 8-foot fences with two run leap, 2-step jump. Yeah, okay. And then there's a man running at full speed from the scene. What are you still doing here? None of this was told to the jury, of course, but doesn't it contradict the evil little man, Tom Riley? It contradicts his ass, absolutely. Especially when he says Eddie acted alone theory. Because Eddie had no defensive wounds, dummy. Janice suffered 98 stab wounds, man. A violent friggin' attack. If Eddie did this, he would have been coming out of there looking like Carrie. He would have came out of there looking like Carrie and shit. Y'all seen Carrie, the movie? That's what he would have looked like. That's what he would have looked. He would have came out looking like Carrie. If he stuck Janet 98 wounds, right? A violent attack. And it would have been that nasty ass blood, right? But Eddie had no defensive wounds, right? He had no deep cuts, right? He had no injuries consistent with a knife slipping, right? No blood splatter. That's big blood splatter. Go back and watch Dexter. Dexter taught us a lot about blood splatter. He would have had that blood splatter, man. You ever eat a meatball sandwich and sometimes you're like, that little invisible, piece of sauce got on you. And the jury never heard a forensic breakdown on how impossible it is to commit a 98 stab wound attack without getting injuries. But that is what Eddie would have looked like. Absolutely. I believe that too. I believe it may have been somebody in Janet's family. Well, I don't know any theories, so, I'm not here to find out who killed Janet. We're here to free Eddie. Let the police do their job. When he lost his keys, that was Janet trying to speak. It's him. investigation into him, but no, they took a child who didn't do anything. Now you got the blood evidence that didn't match the prosecution's story, right? The crime scene blood, no trail leading to Eddie. Eddie was clean as a whip. Exactly. No blood on Eddie, consistent with a close range stabbing. There wasn't a transfer blood pattern, like they call it, the splatter linking him to the attack. And the jury never heard, a full reconstruction. There's more shit that the jury did not hear. How about alternative suspects were ignored? There were adults that had access, adults that had motive. Paul Sr. was still very much in love with Janet. We heard that yesterday. Go back and listen. We talked about jury misconduct. Mike M. sends a note and saying that juror 6-6 was good friends with Paul Sr. and they worked together. And Paul Sr. would say how he loves Janet. You got adults with violent histories. Paul Sr. was beating kids up with friggin' bicycle chains. So none were fully investigated and none were presented to the jury. Now let's look at the timeline contradictions, right? The prosecution, look, you got me working over here, I sweat. Eddie can't be in two places at the same time. We already know that, right? Witnesses to be wrong. Like there's witnesses that were just totally wrong. Physical evidence was ignored. And the jury never heard the contradictions that were laid out. Now, let's talk about the tunnel vision the damn cops had, because once Eddie was labeled a suspect, I think once that call came from the DA's office, other leads were dropped. I think they totally intended on testing Addie's blood up at Selmark, and I think Paul Sr. as well, the original police. But I think once Riley got involved in it, oh, there's my juvenile killer that I've been looking for, that I need to pass these laws. These reports were selective. The investigators built a narrative. They weren't trying to build a case. And the jury never heard how quickly this investigation narrowed down. There's so much the jury never heard. The youth science, sentencing issues. You look at what modern science shows, that kids' brain functions differently. Impulse control. Kids are underdeveloped. Even the way that they sentence juveniles changed. And the jury never had a chance to hear any of this because the science didn't even exist yet. But it matters. And how does it matter? So the jury never heard the DNA excluded Eddie. Let's run this back, right? Another male's DNA was there. Eddie passed a truth serum test, right? Consistently, a lie detector test. Witnesses heard another man saying, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And a man was seen fleeing the scene. Yeah, go back, watch the one yesterday we did on the dirty juror. We covered some good shit yesterday. Yep. There was a juror that said that some guy ended up calling one of the lawyers and said that the guy I work with was on the jury and he works with Paul Sr. Eddie had no injuries consistent with an attack. You know, the blood evidence didn't match alternative suspects. They existed, but it was never talked about. The timeline never worked. I mean, the investigation was rushed. And don't forget, hit that super chat. Really appreciate that. You know, and this wasn't a full trial. It was a filtered bullshit trial. And I think that's exactly why Eddie's Rule 30 motion now in 2026 is so powerful. You know, it's just like, and how can you not be in disbelief over this? You know, we talk about the third party culprit. You know, there's third party evidence. And if there should be any evidence at all that points to another person as the perp, and there's not just one piece, oh, there's a whole puzzle here. You know, first look at the unknown male DNA under Janet's friggin' nails, right? This is the biggest piece, I think. When Selmark found male DNA under her fingernails, that's the classic sign of a struggle. And that DNA didn't match Eddie, was never retested, was never compared to CODIS, you know, and was never matched to any other suspect. It was never matched to any other suspect. Imagine that in a stabbing with 98 slices and dices. The attacker would certainly leave his DNA. The sweat. Eddie's a big guy. For him to friggin' slash somebody 98 times, you know, his arms up above his heart, like he's gonna get tired. He's gonna struggle. And plus, don't forget, this beating went across the whole friggin' house. It went across the whole house. She got beat from one end of the house to another. That's definitely a Downing family trait. I mean, this is textbook third-party culprit shit. Again, the witnesses. You know, witnesses heard another male voice in the house. They heard two male voices. They heard a man say, "What are you still doing here?" I mean, this contradicts the evil little man Riley saying a 15-year-old kid did this all by himself. No, the fuck he didn't. He didn't do it at all. And there was someone else there. There was another male there. You know, so a man was seen running from the scene. You know, so a male was running from the area away from Eddie's house. At the same time, the Red Room occurred. You know, this was never properly investigated. Never. It wasn't matched to any unknown DNA. It never presented to the friggin' jury. I mean, blood evidence doesn't match Eddie. Yo, you stick someone 98 times, it's a mess. It's a friggin' mess. I mean, like I showed you the picture of Carrie. That's what Eddie would have looked like, covered in blood, splattered head to toe. You know, Lisa says head to toe. Where's the trail? But Eddie had no blood splatter consistent with this attack. There was no trail leading to or from the scene, and he had no transfers. All right, I'm coming. No transfers that linked him. You don't go nowhere because we got more. I'll be right back. Check you out. See you on the other side.
They sacrificed you to make it look right. In a broken system where darkness swallows the light. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yo, 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 yeah. Yo, check it. These podcasts rolling in with their lives, using articles, trashing truth. That's their disguise. Riley planted seeds, watch the chaos unfold. Spitting hit pieces, just hustling for gold. Facts in my pocket, I'm spitting the real, while they aim for the clickbait. That's part of the deal. They call it content, but I see the fraud, trying to cash in on the truth like it's they throwing dirt, but I'm rising like a phoenix. Headlines designed just to spread all the meanness, but we use the facts, they use all the lies. Rallies in their pockets can't hide from the sky. Scrolling through the headlines, it's a nasty game. Podcasters mad cause we ain't playing the same. They whining about respect, but I can't be bothered. Your so-called content, man, does it even matter? Pouring hate like it's water filling up my cup. Talking slick behind the mic, but what's up with the luck? I'm here for the truth while they chase the clout. Every word's a shot and there's no room for doubt. They throwing dirt, but I'm rising like a phoenix. Headlines designed just to spread all the meanness, but we use the facts, they use all the lies.
from this real coalition. Bottom line, we're rising, we ain't selling our soul while they drown in the hate, trying to take control. I guess however they can make a buck right, turn the fact into fiction, but we shine the light. These petty players gonna cry when they see the truth is the armor can't mess with me. I'm in the studio, pin fire, no time for the fake, dropping heaven knowledge while they shift and they shake. It's a dirty game, they play to win the crowd, but with facts on my side, I'm standing out loud. So hit them with the truth like I'm hammering steel. We ain't playing games, man, it's the real deal. Eddie's back and forth, they can't close the door. These podcasts use the past, but we're here to restore. Check it, bottom line, yeah, the hate is real, but we're here with the facts, so let's make that real. We ain't ever gonna fall. Hey, with truth on our side, we stand tall. No more lies, no more lies, no more games. Just the real, peeling back their names.
All right, man. We were jamming away, man. Was you all up on your table dancing and shit, you know, up on the trunk of your car or wherever you are? So absolutely, man. So we're talking Eddie OBrien, 3 decades locked up in the joint, for a story that doesn't match the science, that just doesn't make sense. I always forget. People say, "Oh, can you tag me whenever you go live?" And it's like, and I always end up forgetting to tag people, when we go live. Oops. I got to try to figure that out, though. Maybe I can get some kind of email chain going, or something like that. But but there's so many things that the jury didn't know, and we went over a whole bunch of them already. The blood evidence don't match. To stick someone 98 times, that's a friggin' bloody mess, head to toe. I mean, but Eddie didn't have no blood splatter on him. He had no trail leading to the scene or out to the street. Someone else committed the attack. Do we know who it was? No, but we know who it wasn't. Eddie had no defensive wounds. And listen, and a lot of people tell you in violent knife attacks, the attacker almost always cuts themselves. Always. Especially with a slippery knife, because 98 stab wounds, that got messy. Eddie didn't have no deep cuts. He had no slashes. He had no injuries consistent with a knife slipping. I mean, this is inconsistent with being the killer and consistent with someone else committing the attack. But these contradictions, they point to other people. Eddie can't be in 2 places at once. Witnesses are wrong also. The worst part of, and the worst, I think, however you want to call it, I think eyewitness identification is the worst that the justice system has to offer. Physical evidence is ignored, and when timelines like this shit is reconstructed, I mean, it leaves a window for another person to commit this crime. Were alternate suspects investigated? No. Did they have access to the house? Did they have motive? Was there violent history? who had access, who was seen in the area, but nobody's DNA. It was taken, but it wasn't tested. He wasn't fully questioned. Come on, man. This is just pure tunnel vision, and it leaves the door wide open for a third party culprit in this case, Adi. And you're going to have to get the court's going to want to see your DNA, Paul's DNA. So the crime itself suggests that there was an adult male. So who was that? The overkill, the physical demanding, requiring strength and endurance to do that to Janet. I mean, an adult male, not a 15-year-old boy. That's what the experts noted, that the nature of these wounds suggests that it was done by an adult. Oh, Robert George is the worst. And I can't wait to the Rule 30 till he is questioned. Oh, that's going to be great. But this aligns with the unknown male DNA. There was a male voice overheard, right? And somebody was seen running away. And that all points to somebody, So a third party evidence, in this Eddie's case, yes, there is third party evidence. And I told you, I'll show you that this case is fugazi. And I think I already have. You had unknown male DNA that was on Janet. A male voice was heard inside the house. A man was seen running from the scene. Blood evidence was inconsistent with Eddie, right? Eddie had no injuries from that type of attack. There's contradictions in the friggin' timeline. And they ignored all the other suspects. Freebird pointed out a couple weeks ago, there's violations, I think, the 4th and 6th Amendment. I mean, this isn't just one loose thread. It's a rope. And every strand points right to somebody in the Downing family, the Downing house. Somebody that's close to the Downings. Big shout out to 2 cents worth for the $9.99. Big shout out Aunt Jerry for the $9.99. Thank you very, very much. There's no evidence of it being Eddie. The only evidence that is there was Eddie running out the basement stairs, which Eddie said that he done that. That's the only evidence. And after 3 decades in prison, Eddie OBrien still has the same story. Hey, 2 cents doubles back with $9.99. Exonerate Eddie OBrien, run the DNA, lock up Tom Riley and Bob George. Absolutely. Whose cuts? But this unknown male DNA, it was never retested. And this is a crime where the jury never heard the full truth, right? A crime where the narrative outweighed the science. And now with a Rule 30 motion coming, the Commonwealth is going to have to answer. for the part of the case that they left out. Because the truth doesn't disappear just because you hide it in the damn file cabinet. Nope, it don't happen like that. So before I close this out, I'll be right back. Appreciate everybody. Definitely. We do this almost every day, breaking down some Eddie OBrien, actual evidence, actual documents, case files. We're not speculating over here, but this is definitely a free Eddie, platform. You know what I mean? I'm definitely 100% free Eddie. And I think a lot of people in this chat are 100% free Eddie. If not, they might get their head clobbered over here. But nah, everybody's welcome. Even the people that don't agree with me are welcome. And I would love to hear your take on it. Maybe someone that don't agree, that maybe thinks I would like to hear why. Absolutely free Eddie until it's backwards. But I'll be right back. Don't go nowhere. Check you out on the other side. Yeah, you already know. We definitely appreciate everybody that joined us today. Absolutely. The evidence speaks even when people don't. And we're going to be here every day screaming free Eddie until it's backwards. We can't forget that. You know what time it is, man. You know what time it is, man. Yo, big ups to everybody that joined the show today. Big up to everyone that gave us a couple bucks, man. Big shout out to 2 cents worth for hitting us up for $9.99 2 times. Shout out to you. Free Eddie, Lock Up, Tom Riley, and Bob George. And shout out to Aunt G with the $9.99. We gotta thank 2 cents 2 times, coming up with $10 twice. Thank you, so much, man. Every dollar that you guys, give to me, it definitely goes to making what we do better. Oh, I bought this expensive ass friggin' book. I bought this book. So everything we do is to make this thing better. But the headlines, that shit ain't evident. Some of that shit that people be reading, that shit's all speculation. Break down the actual case. Because fear is not a substitute for the truth, right? And when you strip away the bullshit, the politics, the panic, friggin' gossiping, the storytelling, you're left with something that the Commonwealth never expected anybody to read. Is the Commonwealth's own evidence. And that evidence, boy, oof, that shit don't whisper. That shit screams loud and proud. loud and proud. You know, the Cellmark, their lab, excluded Eddie from the DNA found on Janet. I didn't do that. A blogger didn't do it. A TikTok detective didn't do it. True Crime didn't do it. Robert didn't do it. And Denise Noel didn't do it. Of course, Your Honor didn't do it. Cellmark did it. It's their reports, their signatures, their finding. They said Eddie's DNA was excluded. So miss me with your bullshit. So when people ask me why I'm still talking about a case from 97, why is a man still in prison in 97? So we're still gonna dig, right? We're still reading, breaking down the truth about Eddie OBrien like a mechanic rebuilding an engine. But the truth didn't get its day in court. 15-year-old kid was buried under a narrative that science just does not support at all. You know, and we really can't rock with that, people, can we? And with a Route 30 motion coming up soon, the Commonwealth is finally going to have to answer for the part of the story that they left out. The part that they minimized. The part that they helped. And they hoped nobody would ever look at them again. But here we are, man. We're looking at the Commonwealth, we're reading, we're comparing, we're asking them questions that really should have been asked back in 1997. But here we are, man. Justice for Janet, justice for Eddie OBrien. You know, and justice for Eddie is justice for Janet, because I really believe this. And a lot of people might not like what I'm going to say, but the day that Eddie walks out that prison, Janet will finally rest in peace. From my family to yours, we out of here. Peace. We out.
Now listen closely. I got a story to tell about a world that spun into a living hell. In the mid-90s, truth lost its place while the system turned its back on the human race. Oh, all they cared about was filling up the beds. Didn't matter who they grabbed, just fill up the spread. They took the innocent kids, tossed them aside. Evidence was trash, it was a twisted ride. Bodies in the system, just numbers on a page. The system didn't care about the pain or the rage. Now look around, see the streets in despair. Families breaking apart, chaos in the air. Wonder why the youth are lost in the haze. A puppet show of lives caught in a cruel maze. Stand up, dudes, taking the order they kept.
Really
the
rock
neighborhood
with
shattered,
membership on the way
families
out the
wept.
door. Really
Addicts in the
appreciate that.
alleys, shadows of the past.
that
We're
membership
stuck in
up.
the cycle, feeling outclassed. Why do the corners look like a zombie show? It's by design, we all know it, don't you know? It didn't happen by accident. Oh, mm. no faith in what could be said. Every expert that came said the same refrain. Eddie wasn't violent, he was fighting through the pain. Nah, the danger to the world, just a kid with a dream. They taught the wounds and scars like it's part of the theme, but they missed the truth behind the boy standing tall, caught in a system that refused to hear his call. Every single expert, they knew the facts. Non-violent heart, it's not an act. He was meant for healing, not this dark fate, but the court turned blind and sealed up the gate. Oh, oh, and sealed up the gate. With every test and interview, they painted his soul, but that didn't matter. They had lost control. They looked at a number, not the man within, ignoring all the voices that should have helped him win. The purpose of the hearing was to guide him through, yet they tossed the science like they never knew. Too dangerous, too damaged, oh, that's not who he was. Just a child in a system without a pause. Every single expert, they knew the facts. Non-violent heart, it's not an act. He was meant for healing, not this dark fate, but the court turned blind and sealed up the gate. Oh, they focused on the wounds as if pain could define the essence of a kid who's meant to shine. A constitutional failure right before our eyes, lost in the shuffle where justice dies. America, can you see? Can you open the door to the voices unheard, fighting for more? Every single expert, they knew the facts. Non-violent heart, it's not an act. He was meant for healing, not this dark fate, but the court turned blind and sealed up the gate. Eddie's story is a lesson, not just for today. A reminder to listen, to show a better way. When the voices of the many are ignored with disdain, we've lost the battle and it's all in vain. Let the echoes of the experts ring loud and clear. For every Eddie standing there, we cannot disappear.
Let me tell you about a kid, only 15 years. Eddie OBrien, caught in the gears. Political pawns, they played their game. Power and money, all in his name. But was tight with wealth, no simple fate. Climbed the ladder, sealed Eddie's state. Wayne but a prosecutor with a purpose. In the court of politics, none could touch us. This ain't just a story, it's a legacy. Eddie was the stone that shaped the destiny. With every connection, every hand they shake, Eddie's case became the ground they'd break. nothing but best friends since youth. Built a law firm, they spun the truth. When Riley took the case, he was never alone. Built on foundations, powerfully grown. With the Budwell network, they made a show. Charlie Baker in the mix, he's part of the flow. All linked together, climbing the heights. So that he's back, they rose to new sights. This ain't just a story, it's a yeah. 15 years young, stepping into the game with a heart full of hope, but nothing feels the same. They were training them to win at any cost. In a world of shadows, innocence gets lost, ignoring the law. A child's fate on the line. With every manipulation, it's a crime disguised as fine. Hypothetical spoken, like weapons in the night. But the truth standing tall is ready for a fight. They call it justice, but it feels like a lie. Destroying futures in the blink of an eye. Eddie walked in with dreams on his mind, but what he found was a system unkind. We're still here fighting, the battle not done. In a world where the wicked are glorified as one. Evaluations twisted, they been like the rules. They trade silver for gold while they playing the fools. Exaggerated evidence, making it so loud, turning the innocent into a pawn for the crowd. With every step forward, it's a step into pain. A culture of winners that's driven by gain. Eddie's hopes fading like whispers in the dark, but he carries the truth, igniting a spark. They call it justice, but it feels like